For years, Sikhs and other religious groups have had to deal with unfair treatment in airports. Among other things, Sikhs are often asked to remove their turbans, an article of faith so personal, Sikhs often regard it as part of their body. It's been hard to file complaints quickly and clearly. Now, there's an app for that. With a few touches on your smartphone, you can file a claim about profiling based on race, ethnicity, or religion. It goes directly to the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration. The app is called Fly Rights, and it was created by a Sikh civil rights group called the Sikh Coalition. And in the studio with me today is one of the thinkers behind Fly Rights. Rajdeep Singh is the Director of Law and Policy for the Sikh Coalition. Welcome to Interfaith Voices, Raj.
Thank you for having me.
All right, tell us about why the Sikh Coalition wanted to create this.
Right. For several years, Sikh travelers in the United States have been subjected to disparate or discriminatory rates of enhanced screening at American airports, at the security screening checkpoints. And unfortunately, there hasn't really been a quick and easy way for aggrieved travelers to file complaints with the Transportation Security Administration, the Department of Homeland Security, etc. And so a group of Sikh entrepreneurs in this context said that there should be an app for that. And we agreed and thought it was a brilliant idea and went ahead and ran with it and have developed an app.
And is this problem of airport profiling, is this widespread in the United States?
It's hard to say that definitively because the TSA and the DHS, they do not have any sort of mechanism to audit themselves. For many, many years, the Sikh Coalition has urged the TSA to undertake an independent audit to determine whether their screeners are, in fact, profiling people on the basis of race, religion, and other protected categories. Anecdotally, though, and based on some of the evidence that we've been able to collect, Sikh travelers are set aside for secondary or enhanced screening, in some cases 100% of the time at some American airports. And in practical terms, what this means is that even after you've passed through a body scanner or a metal detector without triggering an alarm, you're still set aside for a pat-down and additional scrutiny of your person. And it smells like racial profiling to us.
Why was it difficult to file a complaint before the app? What was the problem?
Well, in practical terms, when you're at the airport in a security screening line, you don't have access to a laptop. You know, your shoes are in a bin, and you're just in a hurry to catch your flight. And by the time you make your flight and reach your destination, regardless of whether you're traveling for business or leisure, you know, by the time you get to a laptop, your memory might have faded. Key pieces of evidence may have been lost. You may not know where you were, what time of day this happened, what the name was of the security screener. With this app, though, you have now the power to file a complaint almost immediately after an incident occurs.
And I wonder if you can tell me how this app works. For starters, what does it look like?
Well, it's a very simple phone application available for free on iPhone and Android. And it functionally is the complaint form that you would file on the government's website.
And can you take us through the steps for using it?
Sure. So suppose you have been mistreated at an airport. What you could do is pull up the app on your mobile phone, iPhone or Android, click on the report button, and answer a series of questions about where you were, who you were with, what time of day it was. And after having an opportunity also to provide a narrative, a description of what happened to you, you simply click send, and it sends an email automatically to the TSA and to the DHS's civil rights offices.
And that's the Department of Homeland Security.
Correct.
Right. And how long has this app been in existence?
We launched it last Monday, so just over a week. And
right.
It's been downloaded as of yesterday more than 10,000 times. And significantly, we've had about 25 people file complaints, Sikh and non-Sikh. And what is striking about that number is that it represents already a significant increase over the number of complaints that the Department of Homeland Security publicly reported that it had received during the first half of 2011.
Very interesting. And so Would you characterize this as a pretty popular app right now? 10,000 downloads sounds like a lot.
Absolutely. In fact, iTunes ranked it in their top 20 free travel apps last week. It was sandwiched between Hotels.com and AmericanAirlines.com. So it's really hit the mainstream in a big way, which was our objective.
And who else besides Sikhs is this designed for?
It's designed for any traveler. Other communities have also complained about possible profiling on the basis of race and ethnicity by TSA officials. In the last year, there have been incidents in both Hawaii and New Jersey involving TSA screeners who allegedly subjected Mexican and Dominican travelers to enhanced scrutiny based on their ethnicity. Muslim travelers have complained that many of them are subjected to additional scrutiny because of the religious clothing that they wear. But we've received already a number of complaints from people who have said, I just felt like I was inappropriately touched. I felt like I was treated as though I was a criminal. I felt like I was groped. It's very heartening to see that a variety of people from diverse communities are availing themselves of this application.
Now, in response, of course, the TSA has said it does not engage in this type of profiling, and it says it meets regularly with various civil rights groups about improving screening procedures. And I know there have been classes for airport workers on religious sensitivity training. So what else are they supposed to do?
Well, there are a number of things that TSA can do to mitigate concerns about profiling. In the first place, they can undertake an independent audit of their screening practices to determine whether screeners are subjecting travelers to profiling. Just because the policy of the TSA is to not profile doesn't mean that the policy is being implemented properly on the ground. And without an audit, there's no sort of transparency. There's no clear, publicly available way for us to measure what they say with what they do.
So they need to check and see whether the classes are having an effect on the people that they're training.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, is the TSA viewing the complaints coming through this Fly Rights app as official complaints?
Yes, and in fact, the TSA and DHS both were briefed at the time when we were developing this app about the fact that it was going to come out, and they have intimated to us repeatedly that these complaints will be regarded as official.
Now, of course, I see that you yourself are wearing a turban. So I wonder if you've been pulled aside frequently at airports yourself, and what was that like if you have?
Yes, I'm pulled aside virtually 100% of the time for secondary screening on account of my turban. In some cases, I'm pulled aside, or rather flagged by security officials even before I've passed through a metal detector. And there's nothing random about secondary screening vis-a-vis the Sikh community. See, the policy that our community negotiated with the TSA around the middle part of the last decade was that Sikhs would be subject to the possibility of additional screening on a random basis at the discretion of a TSA screener. But in practice, what has happened is Sikhs are subjected for random, and I use random in scare quotes, screening 100% of the time, even after passing through a metal detector without incident.
Have you ever been asked to remove your turban?
I have never been asked to remove my turban at an airport.
But some Sikhs have.
Sikhs have. My brother has. A number of our clients have. We hear from time to time from members of the Sikh community throughout the United States that they're being forced to remove their turbans. Most of the time, Sikhs are subjected to pat-downs, and we receive a number of complaints from people ranging from the screener was rude to me to the screener didn't give me the option to pat down my own turban and submit to a hand swab test to test for chemical residue. I mean, that is purportedly the reason why they are patting down turbans.
Because they suspect chemicals are in there?
What they're trying to do is screen for non-metallic incendiary devices or substances. And what they typically do is ask us to submit to a pat-down, which we could perform ourselves, but then what they do is they swab either their hands or our hands and then run it through a machine to determine whether there's any chemical residue present. And what's ironic is that in the last week, we heard again that Al-Qaeda was planning a terrorist attack involving somebody's underwear. So our point to the TSA is that there's nothing inherently sort of dangerous about a turban. Explosive or incendiary devices, no bigger than a pen cap, in some cases in the form of powders and liquids, can be smuggled through clothing as tight as underwear. Yet people don't have to pat down their crotch. And I don't mean that in a flippant way. I'm just saying that it's very hard to reconcile the TSA's own policies with respect to pat-downs.
Now, of course, we've talked here about the turban. And I wondered if you could just give us briefly what the meaning of the Sikh turban is. You know, why is being asked to remove it or even have it patted down some kind of a violation, in your opinion?
Right. The turban has deep roots in the Sikh tradition. A turban is regarded as an integral and inseparable part of a Sikh's body. Sikhs have struggled for centuries to secure and shore up the right to wear their turban, and having it removed by force is akin to a strip search. And so to be told to submit to a pat-down, to be told to remove your turban is degrading. It's an affront to our dignity.
Is it some kind of special religious symbol, though?
It does signify a commitment to the Sikh religion and upholding the values that underlie the Sikh religion. It's a declaration to the world of one's Sikh identity. And as I say, it's humiliating to have it removed or patted down involuntarily. And besides that, it's stigmatizing for Sikhs to be pulled aside and treated like a criminal in an airport setting while other travelers are flying through security. And oftentimes you're conscious and you're aware of the fact that other people are gawking at you and staring at you and thinking, yeah, that man must be up to no good. And so it reinforces stereotypes about Sikhs and about turbans that we've been living with and dealing with since 9/11.
And finally, I'm wondering, since the TSA is already aware that profiling is a problem, what do you hope that they will learn as a result of this app?
Well, to date, the TSA has been able to say to the world with a straight face that they don't receive a high volume of complaints. Last year, in the first half of the year, they claimed that they got something like 19 complaints from around the country involving inappropriate treatment and profiling at airports. In a week since our app was launched, we've already exceeded that number. And we hope to be able to create a paper trail that will empower us and empower the American public in general to approach policymakers in Congress and say, look, we've got a problem here and it needs to be dealt with.
Rajdeep Singh is the Director of Law and Policy for the Sikh Coalition. Their new app for smartphones is called Fly Rights. Thanks so much for joining us, Raj.
My pleasure. Thank you.